this debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Hello, one and all. Cheers and salutations. Welcome to this late evening live stream with Hard Lens Media. I know, we usually don't do stuff like this, but this is a very unique situation because this is a story that has been gaining some attention, and it happened, well, sometime after we went live on our morning show. And I think it's very important that we do address the Republican primary. Yes, we have been covering the Democratic primary, most notably Biden being absent and doing nothing but fundraising, RFK Jr. being smeared, and of course, Marianne Williamson, well, she's only running for her book deal, and that's it. But this time around, we get to cover the Republican primary. So why exactly are we talking about it? Well, first and foremost, again, this is an election cycle. It's 2023 right now, and as we enter 2024, you, the viewers, deserve to know what is going on and who is exactly still in the race. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone for joining us. I just want to give us a few more minutes before we go live. Thank you, Mark Peterson, for the $4.99 YouTube Super Chat. Tucker, let everyone destroy themselves with real questions. 3 cops shot in Fargo, North Dakota. 1 dead, 1 critical. Crazy is everywhere. Well, that's why I tell everyone, keep your heads on a swivel, drink water, and be careful out there. But nonetheless, thank you so much to our viewers and subscribers joining up. Kurt Boss, no notification though, but you were just but you made it to a live stream. Thank you so much. Again, there's nothing I could do about you guys not being notified. I wish I could. But double check and triple check that you're still subscribed. I know this is just out of the blue moment, but I'm happy to be, again, live streaming here on all of our platforms. We're live on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble as well. So without further ado, I think it's only fair that we get started with the segment of Tucker Carlson grilling Republican candidates. Now, again, Donald Trump was absent from this debate. And Tucker Carlson had one-on-one interviews with at least 4 Republican primary challengers, that being, 3, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, and Asa Hutchinson. Now, to be fair here, I think a lot of them just destroyed their own political careers, most notably Mike Pence. So let's pull up this first article here in regards to what is happening. So first and foremost, it's from RT, just to trigger the vote blue no matter who, people. In his first television appearance since leaving Fox News, Tucker Carlson has hammered 2024 candidates Mike Pence, Tim Scott, and Asa Hutchinson for backing the Democratic Party's policy of unlimited military support for Ukraine. And yes, we will be playing those videos. Carlson hosted Blaze Media's Family Leadership Summit on Friday, during which he held live interviews with 3 potential presidential candidates. A persistent critic of Washington's supply of arms and funding of Ukraine, Carlson first pressed South Carolina Senator Tim Scott on what he would do differently. Why not force a peace? Carlson asked. What's the point that we'll know we've reached our goal? Scott, struck by President Joe Biden's oft-stated position that any peace deal would be premature and that the U.S. should continue arming Kiev until Kiev decides it's reached victory. Now, let's be very clear here, folks. The longer this conflict goes on, the further it's going to escalate, all right? And when Trump is the most reasonable person in the room and he's not even present, you know things are bad. So it's one thing to read the article, but it's another thing altogether to actually bring up some of the interviews that took place. So first, let's talk about good old Tim Scott in regards to what's happening to Ukraine. Let's play this first video.
The Third World War very quickly. So why not force a peace?
How would you do that?
Well, you could tell Ukraine, and they are a client state of the United States, without American backing, there's kind of no Ukraine. We're literally paying the salaries of their bureaucrats. We want you to sit down, as they tried to do, but were stopped by our government, and stop this war.
Yeah.
And reach a peace as one does, where both sides, concede some of their interests. Like, why wouldn't that be in our interest to do that?
Now, you will never hear anyone from MSNBC or CNN talk like that or ask that question. And the reason why is because, again, Russiagate has infected the minds of many Americans. And, of course, people like Rachel Maddow heavily profited off of the Russiagate conspiracy. Again, look at how nervous a lot of these Republican candidates are. They probably thought it would be easy being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. Hear Tim Scott's answers.
I think the faster we get to peace, the better off we are. What we don't want to do, from my perspective, is allow ourselves to ask for a premature peace that cannot be achieved as the alliances continue to come together. To the extent that we can find our path out of this situation, the better off we are.
So what's the point at which we'll know that we've achieved our goal?
And we don't even know what our goal is. That's the truth of it. I mean, already we're what? A few weeks into this counteroffense? Yes, there's been reports of some villages taken, but not at a monumental effort. Not at a big grandstand where, automatically Russia is running back to their borders. Russia's in there for the long haul. And again, it's easy for everyone to say, well, this side did this side did that. It doesn't matter. There are people dying. Now, Donald Trump did not attend this event, but let's remember the words he said. And again, take it with a grain of salt, because again, Trump is like any other politician. But he said these words that make him sound more reasonable than not only Nikki Haley, but every single other jagoff that's on that stage. I want people to stop dying. Now, again, I don't know if Trump can really pull off a peace deal in 24 hours, but it's worth a try than hearing Republicans do a click, copy, paste, repeat of what the Biden-Harris administration has been doing so far.
And I say that within the context of having watched 20 years of occupation in Afghanistan, where nobody could answer the question, what's the point?
Yes.
And no one in Congress ever asked that question, amazingly. So what is the specific goal here?
Yeah, so I would say that the objective should be for Zelensky and Ukraine to be able to achieve victory by maintaining as much of their territory as they possibly can, and then seeing the resources that we've deployed, along with our Western alliances, achieving the peace that I believe comes when you get these two folks to sit down and have a conversation that allows them to determine where those lines will be drawn for the next 100 years.
Now, that's an ignorant word salad right there. All right. And I'm going to say why it's an ignorant word salad. All right. So let's say Ukraine starts gaining more territory and starts killing more Russians. According to Lindsey Graham Cracker, he's saying that's the best money we've ever spent. There's nothing stopping the Russian forces from launching their own counteroffense and then killing more Ukrainians. And then Ukrainians are going to do the same, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, good luck getting both sides to the table. And again, Putin and his government has made it abundantly clear, as well as his predecessors before then, that they do not want Ukraine in NATO. Simple as that. This war was instigated, and it could have been avoided. And by the way, before we play the rest of the other videos, just remember, before the war started, before the tanks crossed the border, our politicians knew, Democrat and Republican, U.S. senators and U.S. House of Representatives both knew that the war was going to happen. Now, what did they do? Did they, A, call an emergency session for the Senate and House and get the Biden administration all ready to do diplomatic envoys to prevent the war? Or B, that our also fantastic politicians call up their brokers, their investors, and people who run their accounts via third party to invest into war profiteering? If you think they called for a diplomatic session, please tell me what it's like to believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and Bigfoot. Because all of our politicians made a killing in 2022 financially. Subscribe and follow to Unusual Whales, and you'll find out what your fantastic politician who represents you in the U.S. Senate and House, just how much money they're really worth. Here, we'll listen to this ignorant statement again.
What is the specific goal here?
Yeah, so I would say that the objective should be for Zelensky and Ukraine to be able to achieve victory by maintaining as much of their territory as they possibly can, and then seeing the resources that we've deployed, along with our Western alliances, achieving the peace that I believe comes when you get these two folks to sit down and have a conversation that allows them to determine where those lines will be drawn for the next 100 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Dumb statement before, dumb again as well. But here, I want to pull up another thing as well. Let's play this video.
It's interesting because all measures are relative. So Russia's bad, Russia's a threat, Putin's evil, got it. But the total body count from Russia in the United States is right around 0. Like, I don't know anyone who's been killed by Russia.
Hey, that's a very legitimate statement there. I didn't see Russian tanks ever down the streets of Chicago. I never saw Russian paratroopers flying into Detroit. I haven't seen Russian brigades marching down the fields in Kansas, the cornfields in Kansas. I never saw that. Didn't see Russian ships blocking off all our ports. I have never seen that. That's never happened. I mean, but at least according to people like in BSDNC and CNN or Rachel Maddow or TYT or anyone else who's in the vote blue no matter who mindset, they'll tell you that Russia's the biggest danger to the world because they somehow rigged our elections. Well, let's be very clear here. The Supreme Court opened that door for anybody to do that. And by the way, the United States doesn't have a clean track record because we've done that to other countries. Just throwing it out there. And look, you don't have to agree with me. You got the Library of Alexandria at your fingertips, your cell phones. Look at the United States track record in regards to doing coups and regime change wars in South America, Central America, and Africa, on the continent of Africa, in the Middle East, all over the world.
I know people personally who've been killed by Mexico. The government of Mexico allows fentanyl to be made in its country and to come over our border.
Yes.
And remittances from Mexico are a huge part of
Apologies, bad heart. Wheat fields in Kansas. We ain't Nebraska. I apologize. I got it wrong. Don't cancel me.
their economy. The Mexican government is party to the murder of hundreds of thousands of Americans. So why is Mexico less of a threat than Russia?
Well, two things. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Okay, but
Yeah, and frankly, here's
no Americans killed by Russia,
Yep.
hundreds of thousands killed by Mexico, but Mexico's our ally and Russia's our enemy. How does that work?
Okay, now he's bringing up Mexico. Obviously, can't expect everything to be perfect.
I'm not going to pretend like the legislation I have sponsored and I would sign as president of the United States freezes the assets of the Mexican cartels, targets the Mexican cartels, and hopefully eliminates the flow of fentanyl.
All right, listen. You want to end the threat of the cartels? End the war on drugs. Legalize it all, okay? Regulate it, legalize it, end it. The only reason why we have this crazy crime situation, reason why we have the rise of cartels and syndicates, gangs, and an ever-increasing prison population is because of the ridiculous war on drugs. Similar to Prohibition, war on drugs is causing all the same problems that we saw in the 1930s. History is just a click, copy, paste, repeat version of itself.
Fentanyl, because I do agree with you that 70,000 Americans losing their lives on an annual basis is an existential threat to America that we can solve. We don't have to choose the good news.
Would you be willing to say to the Mexican government, your economy runs on factories right over the border, car plants, for example, but many other manufacturing plants, and we're just going to slap tariffs on that and tank your economy, like tomorrow, unless you stop allowing poison to come into our country? Like, why not do that?
Now, again, a lot of these politicians don't know how to answer these questions because the thing is, the Democratic Party, similar to the Republican Party, profit off of the war on drugs. Well, how do they profit? Well, again, you have a thing called the prison industrial complex. A lot of these prisons have lobby groups who are connected to Washington, D.C., who have plenty of senators and House representatives in their back pocket, not only at the federal level, but at the state level. You see, ever since Citizens United McCutcheon decision had been released upon the American people, thanks to the Supreme Court, lobby groups, such as the prison industrial complex, can influence our lawmakers. Now, I don't see Tim Scott making any real bold decisions because there were numerous opportunities to really deal with this crisis right off the bat. When the war on drugs started, I think everyone at first thought, okay, maybe we could win this war. But as it continued to go on and problems continued to escalate, we saw all the same problems and signs that we saw during Prohibition. And let's face it, people, humans, are creatures of habit. And unfortunately, the addiction is a very real problem here. And because we have such a neoliberal economy where, again, jobs are disappearing, people's livelihoods are destroyed, It causes anxiety, depression, fear, uncertainty. And this neoliberal nightmare that we call America, thanks to our politicians for implementing these policies upon us, they're okay with us poisoning ourselves. I mean, let's face it, we have an opioid crisis here. How can we forget Johnson & Johnson being one of the biggest producers out there? No one wants to talk about that anymore, do they? So now let's switch things up and talk about Trump's former second in command, Mike Pence. Mike Pence, the most mediocre individual in the Republican primary. So let's hear what he has to say for himself as he talks about, of all things, hold on, AOC might want to hide underneath a desk, January 6th.
For sure, having lived through it at the Capitol, is that it was a tragic day. I've never used the word insurrection, Tucker.
Listen, January 6th was the dumbest day in American history, okay? It was stupid. It wasn't a shocking revolution. It wasn't a coup. It was stupid. It was the dumbest organization I ever saw. It was completely overhyped up by Democrats, by liberals, by corporate media, by everybody. And of course, what's really pathetic is that you have many of our quote unquote progressive lawmakers saying, "We feared for our lives." Man, nothing was going to happen. Nothing was going to happen
Over the last 2 years, but it was a riot that took place at the Capitol that day. I saw firsthand where they'd evacuated us down to the loading dock below the Senate chamber, police officers that, as the day wore on, were streaming through 150 law enforcement officers that were assaulted. Obviously, the tragic loss of life ransacking the Capitol that occurred. But I really do believe that a day of tragedy became a triumph of freedom.
No. Let me tell you what happened after January 6th. The censorship intensified on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, let's face it, when Hardlands Media talked about January 6th, you want to know what YouTube said? YouTube indicated that we were saying that the election wasn't legitimate. YouTube, Biden is president, so you calm down, but that's what YouTube thought. Again, why I hate that day, because it opened the floodgates for more censorship, more restriction of speech, what you can and cannot say.
And I'll always believe that by God's grace, I did my duty that day under the Constitution of the United States of America and our institutions held.
When you say the tragic loss of life, who are you referring to?
Well, obviously, Ashley Babbitt would come to mind immediately.
What do you think of the fact that she was shot?
Well, I just think it was a tragic moment.
It's impossible for a politician to be human. Listen to that. It's a tragic moment. He doesn't know how to answer that question. Again, I've been told I've been a little mean in regards to addressing politicians in that manner, but they're not people. Don't treat them like they're people. They don't know how to act. They don't know what it's like to be the rest of us out there.
I just think it was a tragic moment, without question. But I have to tell you that seeing people assaulting law enforcement.
And that's right, global solidarity. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. That's all what he can offer. All what any of these politicians can offer. Thoughts and prayers. But again, I said this before, be it a Democrat or Republican, these politicians do not like you. They don't think about you. And they sure as hell don't respect you.
Officers smashing windows, breaking into the Capitol building.
Yes, in some parts, there was smashing windows and breaking into the Capitol building. And in other parts, Mike, that you're skipping out on, is that the doors were open and the people walked on in. Remember that guy with that bison Viking helmet? He had 6 officers kindly tour him around the building, follow him around, making sure he was okay.
It infuriated me. And it's very likely that the restraint that was shown by law enforcement officers saved lives that day.
Yes, they saved lives that day. But now, Pence is going to tell you what he really thinks about you, about the American people, that is. We all know that this ridiculous war in Ukraine is continuing to intensify and that more people are dying and more of our money is going into this war. But the thing is, there's a problem in America. Our infrastructure is falling apart. Small towns and, yes, American cities, my city in particular, are severely impacted. There's still lead in Chicago's drinking water. Trains are derailing. Bridges are falling apart. Roads are not being maintained. It's a problem all across this country, be it in a red state or in a blue state, big city or small town. And Mike Pence, sorry about that stutter, Mike Pence is going to tell you how he really feels. And again, when you hear his words, that's not my concern. Remember this. Replace Mike Pence with any of the other current politicians serving in Washington, D.C., and that's how they really feel about you. I know we all have to come to terms with this. The Democratic Party and Republican Party do not like you. They don't think about you, and they don't respect you. So let's play this video.
You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years. Yeah. Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. Right. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. Right. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Now, again, where's the concern for the United States? And that's everyone. And I get it. My audience, you guys are diverse. You come from small towns, big cities, red states, blue states. Across the bat, we're all being screwed over. All right? And I don't know how this election cycle will play out. But at the end of the day, the only people that are going to save ourselves is us, not these politicians. So Tucker Carlson asked a very legitimate question. Where's your concern at, Mike Pence? Where's your concern at for the American people as billions of dollars are being wasted into this war? You know, those billions of dollars could have been used to upgrade our infrastructure. Oh, I don't know, do some student debt forgiveness. Maybe do some Medicare for all. I don't know. I'm just shooting off the hip here. I'm thinking about a lot of good things that could come from that money instead of using all those billions of dollars for people to kill each other. Why not improve ourselves? And the words that Mike Pence will say right here are the words that all these politicians live by. Again, I just want to rewind it back where Tucker Carlson asked that question. Here are the words of Mike Pence to you, the American people.
Received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern.
That's not my concern. He said that to you. Don't care if you're a Gen Xer, Boomer, Millennial, Gen Z. Doesn't matter who you worship or the color of your skin. How you vote. Crumbling infrastructure, crumbling America. That's not my concern. Hey, let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1, if you think Mike Pence's campaign will keep on pushing forward. Type 2, he shot himself in the wazoo. He's done. Dead in water.
On a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker.
Look at that face that Tucker made right there. Dude, you didn't just say that, did you? And he did. And there's people cheering in that audience, too.
I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern. I'm running for president of the United States because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. And as president of the United States, we're going to restore law and order in our cities. We're going to secure our border. We're going to get this economy moving again. And we're going to make sure that we have men and women on our courts at every level that will stand for the right to life and defend.
Listen, Little known fact about Mike Pence. Even the people of Indiana got tired of his crap. To my Indiana audience, to the people who live in the great state of Indiana, tell me how you really feel about Mike Pence.
All the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution. Anybody that says that we can't be the leader of the free world and solve our problems at home has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth. We can do both.
We could do both, but we're not, Mike. We're not doing that at all. That's how these politicians really feel about you. That's not my concern. It's not my concern at all. So now let's bring up good old Asa Hutchinson, who talks about his own time and what he can do. Again, all three of these gentlemen, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, and Asa Hutchinson, however you say his name, I think their campaigns are done. Let's face it, Republican voters are in favor of Donald Trump. His poll numbers keep on rising. And I will be surprised if Trump doesn't win the nomination. But here, let's see another jagoff tell you how he really feels about certain issues, especially what's happening in Ukraine and so much more. Let's play it.
Okay, but if I describe to you a nation in which 7 million people had moved without permission, most of them military-age males, and bringing with them, they brought poison that killed over 100,000 citizens of the country into which they were moving every single year, you would say this is an invasion. This is not only a challenge to a sovereignty, this is proof that sovereignty doesn't exist. You don't control your country. It's not really your country. And you would say that's an emergency. In fact, you might even say that's worse than what's happening in Ukraine right now from an American perspective. And so if that doesn't meet the definition of an emergency with which you'd use the U.S. military to respond, then what does? What's happening in the Philippines? I mean, I'm not mocking you, but what is happening in the Philippines is more important than that?
Well, the Philippines is close to Taiwan, and so that sends a signal, of course, that fact that we have our bases there, that if we have the right personnel, the right equipment there, then we send a signal to China, don't touch the freedom of Taiwan.
We're ruled by sociopaths. I mean, again, it's either these individuals know what they're doing and they're psychotic, or they're dumb, stupid, or dumb. And yes, I know what I said, but at this point, it's like they want to instigate a fight. More war profiteering. They want to keep on pushing how far they can go. You know, if it's not with Russia, then it's going to be with China. You know, why not leave everything alone? But again, it seems to be that these U.S. politicians are the ones that are instigating these fights. I mean, let's face it. That recent conflict or rise of tension in Taiwan is because old hagbag Nancy Pelosi wanted to do her little fun old lady adventure to see those, chip factories that her and her husband are invested into. Caused a huge rise in, almost a military conflict between the United States and China over Taiwan. And yet here we are from one conflict zone to another. What could possibly go wrong? That's a big brain idiot right there. And the fact that Trump is more reasonable than that person should send a chill down your spine. Because there are many people like this old jagoff here that agree with his perspective. And many of them are currently serving in the United States Senate and House. So let's talk about another issue as well. Something that happened in 2020, nothing too important. You know, the little pandemic where everyone was locked down and our government effectively abandoned us.
The government did usurp over the past several years is the right to decide what medicine you take in the form of COVID mandates. How did you feel about that? And how many COVID shots did you take? And how do you feel about it now?
Again, folks, people are asking questions. Stand up against censorship And don't let people dictate to you what you can and cannot say.
In retrospect,
How many COVID shots did you take?
0. But I think it's fair, and I can see that you recoiled when I asked you that question. And I don't think, honestly, you should be asking people about their medical care, but that became a matter of public policy. And I do think that the whole country ought to pause and assess, like, what did we just go through? How do we feel about it now? And so it's a very straightforward question. One of the powers that government did use.
Now, again, looking at the entire debate, and of course, Trump wasn't present, but I do have to call on the fact that eventually he is going to have to attend a debate or a town hall again. And he's going to have to go through the arduous gauntlet of defending his policies. But this should be evidence and proof enough, at least from my perspective, and to all of you as well, that those three individuals, Hutchinson, Pence, Scott, are three mediocre politicians that are trying to rebuild a party that has moved on without them. We've covered in previous episodes of Hard Lens Media that Republican voters want Trump to run again. And I said after 2020, for all of you to pretend to be shocked or surprised if Trump decides to throw his hat in the ring. Because again, I would be surprised if he didn't do that. That was something that Donald Trump was going to do again once 2024 was getting close. And he made his announcement. And that's why his poll numbers are, again, much higher than his rivals. DeSantis is barely close to Trump's numbers. And as Donald Trump continues his message and his campaign all across the United States, whereas Biden is hiding and doing fundraising, Trump is showing his opponents that he still has the people's support. Pence, Scott, and Hutchinson more or less effectively shot themselves in the foot. They inspire nothing. And here's the sad truth. A lot of neoliberal Democrats want people like that in power because they put on the fancy mask of neoliberalism. They put on the face of liars. So shout out to Tucker Carlson for actually doing the right thing. So how should we end this segment? How should we end this special late evening live stream about the Republican candidates? Yes, again, let's be clear here. I'm going to be surprised if Donald Trump doesn't win the 2024 Republican primary. He has the support. He has the following. He has the ability to rebuild the Republican Party into his image, whether you like it or not. Let's be clear here. He does have influence, and he has maintained his political movement, unlike some Democrats like Bernie Sanders or other Republican politicians. He will be a force to be reckoned with. So how do we end this segment? How should we end this segment? Well, we all know how I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote independent. I believe in third parties. I believe that the Greens and Libertarians have a huge opportunity to not only gain ground, but put both their parties on the map after 2024. There is that potential. And I encourage all of you to find out your rights, be educated on your rights as a voter in your state, and find out what is going on. Because now more than ever, we have to fight for that better future. So let's end this video segment on a humorous note. The individual walking is not Mike Pence. Looks just like him. It's just a Nassau County executive, Bruce Blakeman, who gets creamed upside the head. And I got to say, this kid's got one hell of a pitch. So if you're ready to laugh, gosh darn it, get ready to laugh. Because I think we deserve to laugh. I got to say, this is one hell of a throw. Hey, we'll watch that again. Yay, that's one hell of an arm. One hell of an arm. All right, folks. As we end this live stream, again, give me your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the other Republican candidates? Do they have what it takes? Type 3 for, yes, kid, I think there's a Republican challenger that could defeat Trump. This is a time where Trump is finally ended. He won't make it past a Republican primary. Type 4. No, Kit. Come on. Let's be real here. Trump's going to win it. Who are you kidding? Trump's got this in the bag. Those other politicians that are running for the nomination, they're mediocre. And I'm being kind in saying that. Until then, folks, take care of yourselves. All the best to all of you. We did get a YouTube super chat. Dr. Nick Riviera, thank you so much for the $2 YouTube super chat for no reason except thanks. As you should. Thank you so much for the YouTube super chat. We do appreciate it. Heartlands Media is live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central on YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and on Kick as well. Live 9 a.m. Central. So pour some whiskey in your coffee, grab a mimosa, smoke a bowl, do some shrooms, chew on some cocoa leaves, whatever you need to do to get you through the morning. But the weekend is going to be around the corner. So I want all of you to have a very safe weekend. Please take good care of yourselves. Keep your heads on a swivel. Drink water. Keep on winning. And if you want to help out Heartlands Media even further, please consider being a patron supporter. By being a patron supporter, you're making sure that we are still up and running and pushing forward. So that's all that matters. And yes, we will be covering the 2024 Democratic Convention here in Chicago. Now, if you can't be a patron supporter, hey, guess what? Enjoy the show. Number 2, enjoy the show. Number 3, enjoy hanging out with the chat. And number 4, share our content on social media. I'm Kit. This has been Heartlands Media. Peace to you guys. And let us all do what we can to build a better future. Oh, and shout out to Kiwi Corner. We got a viewing member in the great country of New Zealand. Freedom for Julian Assange and all innocent people in prison immediately throughout the world. That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. Glad to have you here. Shout out to our Rumble audience. Shout out to our Rockfin audience. Shout out to all of you lovely people. Take care. Peace. We're up out of here. Have a safe weekend. Bye-bye.